Now to North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, who joins us. Good to see you, Governor. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Let's, if you don't mind, talk about the economy first. I know Joe Biden would rather not talk about it, but average Americans are still getting screwed by Bidenomics. It is still happening. We see that in the statistics. My take on it, anyway, was that core PCE, and of course, that inflation index does not include gas and oil and food, which is a very important item for Americans. That is about the same as it was last month, but personal income is less than expected. So in other words, people are making less in real terms. Isn't that why Bidenomics isn't working?
Well, absolutely, David. And Americans can feel that because they're not watching all these statistics. The average hardworking American that supports President Trump knows that they're paying more for food. They know they're paying more for gas. They know they're paying more for rent. And with Biden policies, they're going to be paying more for electricity. And so they can feel it. They know that their life was better under President Trump than Biden. They don't need statisticians or economists to tell them that. And then, of course, if any of them are lucky enough to have savings, they know that their savings are worth about 30% less today under Joe Biden than they were under President Trump. So, of course, that's why they trust Donald Trump, and that's why they want him to be our president.
You know, this PCE, the core PCE inflation index, kills me. And it also bothers Larry Kudlow. Larry Kudlow has his own index. He wants the Kudlow core to be just food and energy. Wouldn't that be better? I mean, you know, I understand why the Fed takes the core rate is so important, but it doesn't include what's most important to the American people.
Well, exactly, and I love Larry Kudlow's index, and whether you want to call it the Kudlow, the misery index, but the average American that's working paycheck to paycheck, they've got to put food on the table, they got to put gas in their car, they've got to pay rent, and they got to pay for their electricity, and all of these things are more expensive under Joe Biden, and they were less expensive under President Trump. President Trump is the guy that's going to not only make America great again, he can make America affordable again.
And yet, President Biden just doesn't seem to make it. And he had this sort of let him eat cake extravaganza last night at Radio City Music Hall. It pulled in $26 million, so it filled his coffers. But at the same time, the way he announced it was, folks, you don't want to miss this one. Join Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and me tomorrow for a grassroots fundraiser. He's dealing with the cheapest seat was $225. The most expensive was $50,000. He thinks that's a grassroots fundraiser. He just seems out of touch with what average Americans deal with, doesn't he? Well, completely. And then you've got Obama, who was, telling most of America that they were clinging to guns and religion. You got the Clintons, who said that we're all deplorables. And then you've got, Joe Biden, whose policies are bankrupting our country. The three of them together is unbelievable. And then, of course, what was President Trump doing as a governor of a state and the commander of our National Guard? I mean, unfortunately, I've had to attend funerals for fallen officers, and President Trump was, at the invitation of the family, doing the right thing, which was honoring law enforcement yesterday. Isn't it ironic that Joe Biden considers himself to be the man of the people, the man of the middle class, the union guy, when in fact all those types of people tend to gravitate more towards Trump than they do now after seeing Biden as president for 4 years? Well, absolutely, because President Trump understands and fights for the people in America that are working, the people that are producing our energy, that are producing our food, that are building our cars. And Joe Biden, with this fantasy green policy, the trillions that they're spending on that, it's not going to help the environment. We're just exporting that to overseas, and we're going to enslave ourselves to China. And none of these policies make any sense. And again, the one that's coming that's completely self-inflicted is all of these policies is this country's not going to have enough electricity in about 2 years, and that's going to be on Joe Biden's doorstep. You know, it's interesting you say that, because while this administration is pushing more electric items, whether it's electric cars that Americans don't like or electric heating, as you say, by 2034, in 10 years, it's expected that our electricity demand is going to grow by 80%. Our electric grids are already overwhelmed by demand. How can we do that if we're going to have a lot more electrical items on the grid? Well, we can't
The Biden plan is complete fantasy. Their demand is skyrocketing. Some of the areas of our country project that they're going to need 5 times as much electricity, whether it's for AI, whether it's data centers, whether it's powering manufacturing or chip fabs. It's going to need more power. And then at the same time, there's other agencies like the EPA that are shutting down American baseload. So the Biden administration is simultaneously driving demand up while they're driving supply down.
Right.
That's going to mean the price is going up and reliability is going to go down. Those two things just don't work. And even a third grader could tell you that if you're going to have a shortage of something, the price is going to go up. And they're creating a self-inflicted crisis for Americans.
Well,
on electricity.
our Secretary of Transportation is not a third grader, but he doesn't have a lot of expertise in transportation. I had an interview with him back in December about EVs and about all these mandates that they're forcing. They want to drive gas-powered cars out of business by upping all of the regulations involved, but it's not working because Americans like the cars. Here's what he had to say to that. Roll tape.
I don't know a lot of people who think that Americans in 2050 are still going to be driving that old technology, that combustion technology that we inherited
Americans
from
like
the
it.
20th century.
Americans
but the big
like
question is, well, no, you're not going to meet a lot of people who ever go back after they've gone electric, and I think that really tells you something.
Well, Governor, I know a lot of electric car drivers in Chicago that had to deal with stalled batteries over this harsh winter who are not going to go back to EVs. So he's wrong on that, isn't he?
Well, absolutely, and that's the same for any northern tier state. I mean, these policies, and then you've got 9 states that are banning the purchase of electric vehicles by 2035. I mean, I heard that, and it made me want to become a car dealer and open up car dealerships right on their border. And then the other piece is, if you actually care about the environment, we have the technology today. We're doing it in North Dakota. We can decarbonize. If they care about CO2, we can take all of that out of a tank of gas. I mean, we can do it today with carbon sequestration. It's happening right now, and so it is. We don't need to switch to EVs to solve an environmental problem, because their solution is we buy all of our batteries from China, and China controls 85% of the rare earth minerals, and they're tearing up the whole planet without an EPA to produce those batteries. So it's not helping the environment. It's hurting American jobs. It's empowering foreign dictators. Everything about that plan is backwards.
And frankly,
that's why we need President Trump back in office.
The grassroots of America understand that, no matter how much the president would like to put himself out there as their representative. Governor, we got to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us, Governor Doug Burgum.